The Australian periodical published by Griffith University, titled The Griffith Review, named its winter 2007 edition Unintended Consequences, and it explored the phenomena in essay, memoir, photography, and fiction. The largest piece was contributed by Noel Pearson. It was an extended and deeply complex essay, clearly expressed despite its complexity. The author titled his piece, White Guilt, Victimhood, and the Quest for a Radical Centre. In his essay, Pearson considers how he sees that white guilt encouraged Indigenous victimhood in Australia and the need now for a radical centre. As you would imagine, the essay details the long list of unintended consequences in the relationship between Indigenous and white Australia since European settlement. In another essay, the filmmaker Rolf de Heer seeks to learn from David Gulpilil how to manage fame and traditional Indigenous culture and the unintended consequences of this unlikely union. The novelist Jennifer Kremer speaks of her preschool daughter's deteriorating physical, emotional, and intellectual development in her wrenching memoir, Where's My Girl? Jennifer's girl is diagnosed first with Rett syndrome and then with autism. Jennifer wonders about all the unintended consequences of the things her girl Millie has been exposed to since her birth. The hepatitis B injection she had at just a few days old, the gluten-free diet she was put on at 2, the supplements given to her at a private clinic in America, the chelation therapy that she and her partner administered, the levels of aluminium in tap water, the high levels of aluminium in the rice milk she drank as a baby, or the arsenic and chromium on the treated pine decking upon which she played each day, following her parents' decision to move into a house near virgin rainforest, intended to give her more space and clear air in which to play. This move may have been, her mother said, a shockingly bad idea. It may have been well-intentioned, but it had unintended consequences that were bad. And she concludes she will never know for sure, one way or the other, if any of the consequences of hers or other actions, while intentionally pure, contributed unintentionally to the calamity her daughter was now in the grip of. But she keeps wondering, as you would. I became interested in this idea of the law of unintended consequences about a year before I left England and came back here to live 4 years ago. It was early 2006, and we were 3 years into the war in Iraq. George W. Bush was the President of the United States of America. Your Prime Minister here in Australia was John Howard, and mine in Britain was Tony Blair. They were, the three of them, supporters of the war in Iraq, convinced of the presence of weapons of mass destruction that could be quickly unleashed upon us, the free world. At that time, I came across an excellent article in the Observer newspaper. Its title was something like Tony Blair and the Law of Unintended Consequences. Regrettably, I didn't keep the article. I have tried since several times to find it. I've Googled the words Tony Blair and unintended consequences. As you would imagine, there are now many entries under that title. But the original article is not there. However, from memory, in that original article, the journalist stated that he felt that Tony Blair did indeed honestly believe that there were weapons of mass destruction. Many other people, journalists amongst them, don't hold this view, of course. But this journalist felt that the Prime Minister generally felt that war was the best course to take for Britain's security, for the freedom of the Iraqi people, and the safety of the world at large. The journalist believed that Tony Blair embarked upon a war in Iraq for sound ideological reasons. And he got it wrong. The enterprise was a disaster. It all went pear-shaped, and there were all those nasty unintended consequences, collateral damage being just the tip of it. Perhaps those unintended consequences were considered and then dismissed by Tony Blair while he was planning a clean regime change. Or perhaps these unintended consequences were never contemplated or even considered by the Prime Minister and his advisers. The law of unintended consequences operates in complex environments, especially when simple tools are used to address them. The intricacies of any country, dictatorship or democracy, are probably quite complex. The idea of a swift and clean regime change from dictatorship to democracy is probably quite a simple idea. And as such, it's probably likely that there will be unintended consequences. The journalist writing this piece said he believed that Tony Blair's motives were pure and well thought through, that the Prime Minister truly believed in the presence of weapons of mass destruction and was not cynical in his manipulation of the facts. The journalist said that although Tony Blair's starting point was impeccable, the Prime Minister got it wrong. He misjudged it, and the unintended consequences were dreadful. And so, the journalist said, Tony Blair should resign as Prime Minister and as MP for Sedgefield immediately. In the letters to the editor the next day, the replies were numerous. Some refuted the journalist's idea that Tony Blair's motives were ever pure. Others agreed that his motives were pure and agreed with the journalist that he should still stand down as Prime Minister because the results of his action were so tragic, whatever his motive. And others still said that even though the results of his actions were so tragic, so bad, because of his pure motives, he should stay. His heart was good, and so were his intentions, and that was all that mattered. He should stay on as Prime Minister of Great Britain. While it's very unlikely that any of us will ever have to face anything as dreadful as whether or not to authorise the military invasion of a sovereign nation, it is a good question. Do we judge a person by their motives or by the results of their actions? What do you do most of the time?